In 2022, a man who chooses to remain anonymous, let's call him Mr. X, opened his inbox and found something that would shatter the foundation of everything he thought he knew about his family. The email came from Matthew Westover, a deputy U.S. Marshal based in Omaha, Nebraska. It wasn't spam, it wasn't a scam, it was real. And it claimed that Mr. X's late father, a man he'd loved and admired his entire life, was not who he claimed to be. According to the U.S. Marshals, his father had been linked to a 50-year-old unsolved crime, a brutal double murder that had haunted Omaha for generations. Mr. X was stunned. His father, John Damon, was a quiet and hard-working man, a devoted dad, the kind of guy who poured his heart into his children's education and lived without drama. He had never once raised suspicion. This entire investigation started with a DNA test. Mr. X had taken it through 23andMe to learn more about his ancestry. He'd expected to find maybe a long-lost cousin or confirm the family story that they had some Irish blood. What he got instead was the opening to a dark chapter in American history, one that had been buried beneath decades of secrets and reinvention. To understand this story, we have to go back, way back, to Omaha, Nebraska in the 1940s. A couple named Opal and Bill Arnold welcomed their son Leslie into the world in 1942. From the outside, they looked like the perfect American family. A nice house, 2 sons, Leslie and his younger brother James, and a quiet life. But under the surface, things weren't so idyllic. By the time Leslie was a teenager, something was boiling inside him, a cocktail of anger, resentment, and defiance. By 1958, Leslie was 16 years old and deeply in love with a girl named Crystal. They were your classic rebellious teen couple, cruising around Omaha in the family's brand new Mercury sedan, sneaking kisses at the drive-in. But Leslie's mother, Opal, hated Crystal, called her white trash. That tension began to gnaw at Leslie's already fragile connection with his family. Everything snapped on the night of September 27, 1958. Leslie asked his mom if he could take Crystal to a movie. Opal said no. That was it. That was the moment. Fueled by rage, Leslie grabbed his father's rifle, walked downstairs, and confronted his mother. Opal didn't even flinch. She laughed and said, "What are you going to do? Shoot me." And that's exactly what he did. 6 shots later, Opal Arnold was dead on the living room floor. Seconds later, Bill Arnold walked through the door and saw the horror in front of him. He lunged at his son. They struggled, fought, father against son in a nightmare scenario. And then Leslie pulled the trigger again. He killed his father too. After murdering his parents in cold blood, Leslie didn't break down. He didn't run. He didn't even panic. Instead, he grabbed the car keys and drove to pick up Crystal. They went to the drive-in and watched The Undead, a horror flick from the year before. He acted like nothing had happened. They kissed, they laughed, and after the movie, he dropped her off at home. Then Leslie returned to the house where both of his parents lay dead. He calmly took his 13-year-old brother James to a neighbor's house and told them their parents had gone away to help the grandparents. That night, he slept soundly upstairs, just a floor above the corpses of the people who had raised him. 2 days later, on September 29th, Leslie went to school as if nothing had happened. His classmates saw no change in him. He joked, he played, he did his homework. That night, while others were watching TV or eating dinner, Leslie was in the backyard, digging shallow graves beneath the lilac bushes. That's where he buried Opal and Bill Arnold. For 2 full weeks, Leslie carried on like everything was normal. He dated Crystal, attended school, and mingled with friends, all while the decaying bodies of his parents lay hidden in the garden. The truth only unraveled when his grandparents came to town in early October. They hadn't been able to reach Opal or Bill, and something didn't feel right. Leslie tried to lie, said his parents had gone away, but his story quickly collapsed. In a moment of panic, or maybe guilt, he confessed, told them everything. That's when Omaha police were called, and Leslie was finally arrested. The community was in shock. Leslie Arnold wasn't some delinquent dropout. He was a gifted saxophone player, a straight-A student. People whispered about mental illness, tried to rationalize the madness. One haunting piece of evidence was a letter Leslie had written. "My parents were wonderful people. This I learned too late, and I am sorry. How I ever went so wrong, I'll never know." In 1959, Leslie pled guilty to 2 counts of murder and was sentenced to life in prison at just 17 years old. At first, he struggled behind bars, but he quickly adapted. He joined the prison music program, kept to himself, and became what the guards called a model inmate. Then came James Harding. Harding was another prisoner, and together he and Leslie began hatching a plan that would take years to pull off. By the mid-60s, the pair were secretly communicating with a recently released parolee through ads and letters, asking for tools, advice, anything that could help. They eventually got their hands on saw blades and rubber masks. For months, they used the blades to saw through the bars of the prison music room window, using chewing gum to hold the bars in place whenever guards were nearby. Finally, on July 14th, 1967, the plan went into motion. Leslie and James slipped through the music room window, scaled a 12-foot barbed wire fence using a t-shirt, and vanished. The rubber masks they placed on their pillows fooled the guards during roll call. By the time anyone noticed, the pair were already 689 miles away in Chicago. James Harding was recaptured a year later, but Leslie Arnold, he disappeared without a trace. While law enforcement scrambled, deploying helicopters, police cruisers, and patrol planes across 4 states, Leslie quietly started a new life. He got married in Chicago to a woman with 4 kids, worked in restaurants, and avoided trouble. But after Harding was caught, Leslie knew it was only a matter of time before the law caught up. He packed up his new family and moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where he officially became John Damon. He secured a fake passport, forged documents, and disappeared into the fabric of society. From there, he and his family moved again, this time to Miami. But the marriage couldn't survive the pressure, and they divorced. Leslie kept working, bouncing from job to job, mostly as a traveling salesman. The freedom of being on the road meant no one could track him. It also meant he never had to stay anywhere long enough for someone to recognize his face. In the 1990s, living in Los Angeles, he met another woman. They had 2 children together, a boy and a girl. That boy would later become known as Mr. X. Leslie, now John Damon, was a loving father. He worked tirelessly to support his family. And in 1992, he made another bold move. The Damons left the United States for New Zealand. 5 years later, they moved again, this time settling permanently in Australia. Mr. X had always believed he'd grown up in a perfectly normal household. His childhood was happy. His father was kind, supportive, and always present. A quiet man who read him bedtime stories, cheered him on at school events, and never once raised his voice. There was no reason to suspect that the man he called Dad had once shot his own parents in cold blood, or that he'd escaped prison and vanished off the face of the earth. But everything changed on August 6, 2010, when his father, known to the world as John Damon, died of natural causes in Australia. He passed away a free man, surrounded by a loving family who had no idea he'd spent the last 5 decades living a lie, a fugitive, a killer. Back in the United States, the cold case of Leslie Arnold remained unsolved. Leslie had been just 16 years old when he murdered his parents in Omaha, Nebraska in 1958. He was sentenced to life in prison, but in 1967, he escaped, and for more than 50 years, no one could find him. Then, in 2007, Leslie's younger brother James Arnold, who was away at a sleepover the night of the murders, submitted a DNA sample in hopes it might help. When Deputy U.S. Marshal Matthew Westover took over the case, everyone told him it was hopeless. just another dead-end file collecting dust. But Westover was determined. He tracked down James Arnold and asked for another DNA sample. This time, Westover uploaded it to an ancestry site and began cross-referencing with genealogical databases. He didn't get any hit. 2 years later, in 2022, Westover's computer lit up. A DNA match had come through. Not just a distant cousin or long-lost relative, this one was close, very close. It came from a man who had uploaded his DNA and sent a casual message along with it. "I'm trying to find out more information about my father. He was an orphan from Chicago." What he didn't know was that he had just emailed a U.S. Marshal, and that orphan from Chicago was Leslie Arnold. After more digging, interviews, and verification, the truth emerged. Mr. X received a shocking email. The U.S. Marshals had confirmed it. His beloved father, John Damon, was Leslie Arnold. When Westover explained this to Mr. X, the young man was floored. He'd always been told his dad was an orphan from Chicago. Westover replied, "Well, he was an orphan. Your dad wasn't lying about that. He was an orphan because he killed his parents." And just like that, the case of Leslie Arnold was closed. After murdering his parents, escaping prison, and vanishing into thin air, he had built an entirely new life in a new country, with a new name, raised children, traveled the world, and died a free man, taking his secret to the grave. But questions still linger. Did he ever feel remorse? Was John Damon truly reformed? Or was he simply the best liar the U.S. Marshals never caught? This case forces us to question how well we truly know the people closest to us. Can someone bury their past so deeply that even their children never suspect a thing? Or does the truth, no matter how dark, always find a way to the surface? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Was Leslie Arnold a changed man who earned redemption, or just a fugitive who ran out the clock? What would you do if the father you adored turned out to be a killer in disguise? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.